Hey everyone, Tankenstein here. In this video I'll be going over how to complete War Thunder Battle Pass challenges quickly and efficiently. Though I am currently in Season 2 of War Thunder Battle Pass while making this video, most of the general challenges either remain the same or are fairly similar between seasons, based on what we've seen so far, so you should be able to translate this video, again being based on Season 2 of Battle Pass, to most if not all other Battle Pass seasons and challenges. That said, this video was suggested by Chow DePaula, so thanks Chow. If you have a suggestion for a future video, please let me know in the comments below and I will try to make it. Might take a few months, might take even a few weeks hopefully, but I will definitely look into it. That being said, let's get into this video. These challenges are only completable if you're using Tier 3 vehicles or higher. Additionally, if you would like a complete explanation of everything having to do with Battle Pass, check out my Battle Pass Explain video linked below. There are so many different ways to get these challenges done as they really boil down to what types of vehicles and game modes you prefer as an individual, but I'll give you the best ways that I feel are best to get these done. Honestly, I prefer to do most challenges in arcade, especially those for air, but you can do all of these more or less in realistic. You may have to sub out some of the vehicles in the lineups I recommend, but otherwise it should still be about the same. As a whole, the majority of challenges are basically challenges where, again, you just need to pick the vehicle that you're best at and go to town. If I went over every challenge in detail and went over lineup preference for each of these challenges, you'd likely be looking at upwards of a 30 or 40 minute long video. Most of the challenges where it's just get X amount of kills or wins are kind of tasks that you just need to play your favorite vehicles on. That said, I'll give you all of the important details for how to defeat the toughest of these challenges while still touching on every other challenge. So don't worry, this will still be a complete guide, but I'll really be focusing on the toughest challenges. I'll be going over these challenges in order of difficulty from toughest to easiest, in my opinion. That being said, first and foremost, Sidious, Altius, Fortius. You must destroy one vehicle with each of the following weapons: artillery, unguided rockets, ATGMs, depth charges, bombs, and torpedoes. Bombs, rockets, and torpedoes are probably going to be your easiest portions of this, with maybe ATGMs being easy as well, if you have access to them. Personally, I do not think that this should have been on here because even though everyone can technically earn the BMP-2M squadron vehicle, which does come with ATGMs, they still have to purchase it for a large amount of Silver Lions and play it at high tier. ATGMs are too high tier for most people to be able to fully complete this task, unfortunately. This is one of the only points that I will really say, what were you thinking, Gaijin? As they're selling this battle pass that can't even be completed by a large portion of players. According to a recent poll I ran of War Thunder players on my YouTube, only 35% of over 1,400 respondents said that they have 7.0 BR or higher vehicles, which is where most, if not all, ATGMs are found. A full 2/3 or more of the player base, based on this poll, can't even complete this task. And that's if they're lucky enough to have Russians, which are with the BMP-1, I believe it is, at 7.3 or give or take BR. That gripe aside, however, let's get into how to complete this challenge. So that being said, let's just go over the depth charge kill first, being that this is easily the most challenging task of the bunch. Aside from possibly being able to convince the enemy to all get together to depth charge each other peacefully, you're going to need to charge into enemy positions, hopefully towards isolated ships. You will likely die many times unless of course the enemy is trying to depth charge you as well, which could lead to some interesting confrontation. So that said, for tips, get used to dropping depth charges in test drive. Also, set your controls. Oftentimes depth charge controls need to be manually set. They have to be key bound. I, for example, put mine to the control button. 2. Pick a boat that can go over 100 kilometers per hour. The trick with depth charges, at least in the absence of fighting submarines, is to get extremely close to your enemy. Ultimately, you must be within about 0.05 kilometers, so within about 50 meters of your enemy to even scathe them. It gets even worse when considering that they're moving targets more likely than not. For this task, I would strongly recommend picking the German S100, being that it is a Tier 3 vehicle, and again, you need to be in a Tier 3 vehicle to complete these tasks. Also, it is very fast and has more powerful depth charges, being at 130 kilograms of explosive power compared to 100 kilograms, for example, for most Japanese depth charges and for a few other countries. Once you unlock your vehicle of choice, unlock the depth charges, and find yourself a slow-moving, hopefully lightly armored enemy, there is a chance that you could come right around a corner of an island and ambush a destroyer. This would be an ideal situation as they tend to be large vehicles that are not incredibly fast, thus making them susceptible to a well-placed depth charge. Or well-placed depth charges, you'll probably need more than 2 or 3. Do not expect to get this one done on your first attempt, but if you do, let me know. Alternatively, the Project 123K in the Soviet tech tree would be good for this task, especially being that it sits at a slightly lower BR than the S100, although it does also feature a slightly lower speed. And try to do this in arcade. Not only does it give you regenerating depth charges, which if you somehow manage to survive one of these suicide depth charge attacks, you can also move faster in arcade than you do in realistic, and that speed effect is proportionate to the base speed that you have in realistic, so faster vehicles move much faster, so definitely take advantage of that. Now, getting away from depth charges for artillery, I'd recommend going to a low tier 3 arcade battle and using artillery very often, as you get artillery charges for killing enemies and completing tasks. You'll get more chances to use artillery in AB ground compared to RB ground, and there should be more players per match at low tier 3. Just aim for open top TDs like the M10 GNC or the M18 Hellcat, or lightly armored vehicles like the R3T20 or any SPAA. Oftentimes these are fast vehicles and will get out of the way, but not necessarily. Concentrate numerous artillery strikes on them at close range so that they're very precise in order to have a better chance for getting a kill. You might not get a kill this way in a single match or even after 5 or 10 matches, but it will eventually happen. It can very easily happen against a heavy tank too, so diversify your targets. Aim for clustered enemies as your first priority, with secondary priority given to lightly armored isolated targets. Now, switching from artillery, bombs are pretty easy. You may not like it, but AB ground is king here as well. I get probably 2 to 5 bomb kills per match. All you have to do is accrue 2 to 3 points, which are earned in the same way that artillery is earned, and pick either a bomber or attacker for ground strike. Line up your bombing reticle with an enemy, and once it becomes red, release 1 or 2 bombs. This is more effective when used against stationary targets and or groups of enemies. If you're patient with waiting for the reticle to turn red, you will get the kill. Now this leads to rockets. Do the same thing. Play AB ground, wait for an attacker which only needs 2 points, and hope you get one with rockets. This is more effective near top tier as rocket pods on jets are common and much more effective, but you can occasionally have 2 Tiny Tims to use at lower tier. Learn to aim off center of the aiming reticle and a little bit low. Once you can master this, you'll get a rocket kill per match in ground AB. And now for torpedoes. This one may be the simplest, most dim-witted one to complete. So I've seen it where numerous times people have had currently mid to high BR coastal vehicles such as the TS Boot Project 306 and have just continuously shot torpedoes at enemy lines around 8 kilometers away in naval AB. I say naval AB because it will allow you to continuously regenerate your torpedoes. Same goes for depth charges, but again that likely won't matter because it's probably a suicide mission with those. This said, with any small coastal boat, you will be smaller and likely to have smoke machines. This tactic should work pretty flawlessly as long as you have the long range torpedo upgrade. I've seen people getting 3+ kills per match with torpedoes alone doing this mind-numbing strategy. Finally, for ATGMs, I would recommend either flying in helicopters or just using a 7.3 BR BPM or the Raketenpanzer, or really just something of that nature. Basically, try to use these before tanks gain their special armors around 9.0 BR. The closer to 7.0 BR that you are, the better. Although the M60A2 for the Americans has a great ATGM that can easily one-shot most tanks. So with that ridiculous challenge out of the way, I promise all the next challenges on this list will be much quicker to go over. That being said, Doom Sparrow. Defeat 30 enemies while you yourself have received critical damage or are on fire. This one, if not for the depth charge requirement of the challenge I mentioned first, would be the hardest challenge on this list. And that's simply because you need to be on the balance line of not only life and death, but you cannot control what modules are damaged, to what extent they're damaged, and what your enemies do. Oftentimes, if you're on fire in your tank, or if you've received critical damage, your gunner is dead, your cannon breach doesn't work, or you cannot fire on the enemy target for whatever reason. This is tough on ground vehicles because you need a vehicle that can actually take damage without dying. This would require a large tank with a spaced out crew. Most Russian tanks are out of the picture when considering this, as are many tanks for most other nations. The Mouse, however, would be a good candidate for doing this task, as it catches fire often and can receive critical damage and get right back into the fight. Besides that, it's almost random between most, if not all, tanks in the game, as some can survive damage, some can't, and it really just depends on where you get shot and by what. The only direction I can point you towards are using heavy tanks, as they tend to deal with critical damage better than lighter vehicles. This said, planes would probably be the easiest way to complete this challenge, as you can receive critical damage, such as something as simple as a flap being blown off, and still be able to take out 2 to 3 enemies with ease. Bombers as well are a great choice, but only if you have good defensive armament to take out fighters on your tail. Personally, I would either go for higher tier jets, or if you don't have access to these, mid-tier American planes like the P-47, as it can deal with damage very well. The German planes, especially the more advanced Me-410 planes and Focke-Wulf 190s, can also take critical damage and still take out many planes. Also, one thing you need to remember is, as this is easiest in air AB, you can theoretically just head on people constantly for a few matches, which is guaranteed to have you get critically damaged very often while getting kills in the process. You could possibly complete this challenge if you use that method and are lucky or productive in 10 or so matches, while possibly working on other challenges as well. And now for the challenge of Pneumarius, Granonius, win 20 Hero of the Sky, Heavy Metal Hero, or Terror on the Seas rewards. This might be the challenge that is most based on skill compared to the others. For most people, I would recommend going into mid-tier German RB ground and just tearing it up. Realistically speaking, a 5.3 Panther or Tiger should be able to defeat most enemies that it encounters with ease. Even if you don't have access to these vehicles, Shermans or T-34s are also good. I think that just doing this in ground RB, being that you only need 6 kills instead of 12, should make it far easier for most, especially with a competent set of vehicles that you're used to. For me personally, I dominate mid-tier German AB as a strong 5.3 lineup that includes the Bf-109G6, Focke-Wulf 190C, and others will routinely earn me 12 plus kills in the air. The only real advice I can give you is to play the vehicles that you're best at and get better at them. Sure, there are some vehicles I personally feel will make it easier to complete this, such as the vehicles with strong cannons or guns compared to their BR, like what most sub 7.0 BR German tanks have, but that's just my opinion. Ultimately, you need to find what you're best at in terms of kills and stick with it. Again, our B matches only require 6 kills for these rewards, so keep that in mind when completing this challenge. And now with that challenge out of the way, let's go to Akia non captat muscas, which, forgive me for my pronunciations here, I do not speak Latin, nor am I a scholar of Latin, nor do I speak a Latin-based language. That being said, we have 20 kills of the enemy's 1.0 BR or higher. This one seems difficult on the surface, but it's fairly easy if you know what you're doing. So first of all, you can manipulate the BR system a little bit, especially in ground matches, by placing a higher BR vehicle amongst a lower BR lineup, thus making it more likely to encounter a 1.0 BR plus vehicle compared to your lower BR vehicles. A good example of this is the M18 Hellcat at 4.7 BR in arcade versus a Tiger E or any Panther. The 76mm cannon on the M18 is more than capable of taking out most vehicles through 6.0 BR in ground AB, and will encounter those vehicles more often if you have a 5.0 or 5.3 vehicle in your lineup as well. Really, this formula will work with most vehicles. Get a vehicle with a powerful cannon that sits at a relatively lower BR for whatever reason, and just up tier it on purpose by placing higher BR tanks or planes if you like to play AB air in your lineup. The stronger cannon should ensure that it can defeat tougher armor, all while being a full BR lower than your defeated enemies. And now on to Kia no Minor Leo. Achieve either first strike or final blow a total of 10 times. This one I find will be easiest if you play air arcade, unless you're really good at air RB or find yourself living until the end of the match often. Especially for first strike, I'd say to get your fastest plane that you have in air arcade, or the fastest tank that you have with a good cannon in ground arcade or RB, and go to the point where you will likely find an enemy before anyone else. At this point, it kind of just relies on how fast you pull the trigger to win the first engagement. For me personally, I'll be flying my F4E in air arcade and picking off attackers and bombers at the beginning of a match. Alternatively, in air matches of all kinds, you can destroy an NPC air or ground target for first strike. Easier though is the final blow reward. This one I would definitely recommend to play in air arcade, though it is doable in air RB and the various ground modes. Really, all you need to be is mindful of the tickets remaining on either team and to stick near an easy ground target. When you see the match is about to end, simply destroy that ground target and you should get the final blow reward. This one is much more controllable than First Strike and is, again, easier in Air Arcade, though other game modes and types can do this fairly easily as well. Your general lineup type for this challenge should be speedier vehicles to ensure that you can get to where you need to quickly and destroy enemies. Again, for air, the F4E is great, but P-51s are good as well, and for ground, Hellcats, T-55s, E1s, kinda the R3, and others along that type of vehicle should work best for either First Strike or Final Blow, as oftentimes you'll need to rush to where the enemy is on the ground to get the Final Blow achievement. So this all said, the remainder of challenges are basically ones where it's just pick your favorite vehicle and win. I'll go over them now, but most of these challenges are going to be such where you just pick, again, your favorite lineup and have at it. These are not listed in order of difficulty, so first and foremost, Bellum Omnium Contra Omnis. Get 10 kills against naval or ground from air while in a naval or ground match, and 10 kills against air vehicles from either naval or ground vehicles. This one is self-explanatory. Basically, pick your favorite SPAA and have at it. Personally, I'd say destroyers and light cruisers also have great anti-aircraft for this, as they have automated and oftentimes very powerful AA systems, which could make it easier to shoot down planes. If not, ground AB is a great choice for this as well, as you get the SPAA aiming reticle and enemy bombers are constantly spawning, or you could spawn in as a fighter and take out enemy planes. Further, I'd say that ground AB is also great for destroying ground vehicles with air, as you can quickly and easily spawn into planes that have aiming reticles to destroy ground targets. Just wait for your bomb reticle to turn red, drop a bomb, and you probably have a 50 to 75% chance to get a kill. Simple as that. Importantly, the tasks in this challenge can only be completed in ground and naval matches, not air matches. And now for Veni Vidi Vici, win a match while destroying a vehicle. That's about it. Honestly, this may be one of the most do whatever you want challenges that Gaijin could create. Essentially, just pick a vehicle that's your favorite and wreck. For me personally, I would pick a powerful vehicle for its BR, such as any Panther tank for ground forces, or any Focke-Wulf 190 for air battles, or P-51 or similar aircraft for another nation. Essentially, you're going to want to pick an offensive-based vehicle for this one. So maybe don't use a Tortoise or a T-95 or a bomber, unless you're sure of yourself with those vehicles and taking out other enemies. This, like all other challenges, requires a tier 3 or higher vehicle to make progress. This challenge is accumulated over matches, so don't feel bad if it takes days or weeks to complete it. You'll get it. And for Primus Pilus, get number 1 on your team 7 times. Essentially, this is the same idea as Veni Vidi Vici. Pick your best tier 3 vehicle or higher and have at it. This is a little different in that if you like flying bombers, for example, you can do that, or if you're good at capping bases or playing support, you can do those things as well. Really, just do your best and get the highest score. For me personally, I will be playing either top tier American jets if I want to complete this, or mid tier German planes, both in arcade, but this one is really just totally up to you. I'd recommend picking something powerful for its BR, however, there are some vehicles that are objectively worse at some BRs than others, so just be mindful. And now for Sal Lucette Omnibus, finish 25 matches of air, ground, and naval each for a total of 75 matches. This one is easy, but will be one of the most time-consuming challenges. Being that you just need to finish a match and have 70% activity, do not leave before that match ends, and try to be an active participant. I know many of you have not touched naval, so I would recommend hopping over to Russian or US blue water fleets for a relatively quick grind. You need only to research 4 vehicles each before reaching a tier 3 light cruiser to help you complete this task. Other nations have 5+ vehicles that you need to research. For the challenge of Spurious Ligustin, 30 professional awards is all you need, and this award is given when you kill an enemy and you do not die in the process. Basically, what this means is that you will want as many opportunities per match to get kills against enemies, which lends itself a little bit better to air arcade, especially in mid-tier matches, though ground matches are a bit of a toss-up. This said, you'll want a vehicle that is trustworthy for you, such as a tank that you can reliably get kills with while either staying hidden, or a tank that can deal damage and take damage without dying, like a well-armored medium tank such as a Panther, or a heavy tank like the KV-1S, ZIS-5, or a German KV-1. Alternatively, Shermans and T-34s are also great for this, as they can suit any number of playstyles and still take hits. Again, for planes, I would recommend Air Arcade and playing with mid-tier Germans, simply because they're heavily armed, and if you have enough BR 4.0 plus German planes unlocked, you should be able to get 4+ kills per match with ease, making it so that this challenge can be completed in a relatively short period of time. And now I'll just mix two separate challenges together because basically it's the same thing, just different ways. So for Plenus Gratis, you need 250 kills, and for Moratoritas Salutant, you need 100 critical hits. And basically, I would just suggest going for, at least for the critical hits, you might want to look at SPAA as kind of like an alternate or an alternative type of vehicle for this, especially one that has good penetration like the R3T20 or the Verbal Wind. Those are excellent SPAAs. You can just flank enemy tanks and you can get a lot of critical hits without killing the enemy, which is kind of the point on ground for this. But realistically speaking, for air, just go for German mid-tier AB, just because those 20 millimeters will crit. So 20 millimeter German cannons are for crits, 30s are for kills, and you will crit a lot with those cannons. Alternatively, for the 250 kills, essentially the same thing, but really just pick your best vehicles. It's not quite as precise, I guess you could say. Just get things that you know you're going to get a lot of kills with, whether it's a Russian low, tier 3 tank or an American top tier Abrams or whatever the case may be. Really just get whatever your best vehicles are. What I would personally do is just kind of pick a mid-tier German. I think that that's one of the most powerful lineups in the entire game, if not the most powerful lineup, regardless of mode, regardless of whatever the case may be. 5.3, 5.7 Germans are ridiculously powerful, but alternatively, again, just pick whichever vehicle you are most comfortable with, and you should get that 250 kills pretty quickly. Air RB is not that great for this, however, just because you're not going to get, as far as I know, any kill multipliers. So really, whereas you might only get 1, 2, maybe 3 kills in ARB, you're talking possibly over 100 matches if that's all you play. So just kind of switch it up a bit and go for game modes where there are more players at tier 3+. And finally, for the last of these is Alea Iacta Est, which is basically just getting 40 kills and assists with any of the Battle Pass reward vehicles. Ultimately, you're kind of pigeonholed with this one because you can only pick from 4 vehicles to use, just because of how limited the player base is in Naval right now. I'd say to take that one out of the equation, unless of course you're really into Naval, then I guess go crazy with the Type 1936A for this challenge. For me personally, I would gravitate towards the T55E1 on this, whether you prefer AB or RB ground, simply because it's fast, has a powerful cannon, and can earn kills easily. Plus, it's the first Battle Pass reward vehicle, so you'll likely have this long before the other vehicles. Additionally, it sits at a good BR where it should do well. The Russian ITP M1 is good, but also has somewhat limited ammunition, which could make it difficult to play, especially in the furball that tends to be air RB and AB around that BR. This said, I would recommend the T55E1 in ground AB or RB, though ultimately it's whatever you're best at that should be the deciding factor, being that you're limited to only using 4 vehicles in this challenge. And of course, the Centurion at Battle Pass rank 75 is probably not going to be an option because most people will not have unlocked it by the time they need this challenge done. But that all being said, thanks so much for watching, everyone. If you stuck it out to this part of the video, you are a champ and I really appreciate it. I know I got fairly close actually to that 30 to 40 minute mark that I was trying to avoid, but at least I did come a bit underneath it. So again, if you've not done so already, please subscribe, as that would mean the world to me. I tend to make guides and top 5 and all those things, that will kind of help you play War Thunder, and it really means, again, the world to me. But either way, signing out for the night. Thanks again for watching, everyone, and I hope you all have a great day. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you all on the other side.